There you go. Bob, did you want to start with the agenda, or do you want me to? Your call.
Yeah, I will. I will do the agenda here. Just give a brief overview. So, welcome everyone to our first kickoff meeting for ODIM, which I somehow we spelled it wrong in the slide you're showing. We forgot our I.
Apologies. We certainly did. My apologies.
The I is silent.
I'm going to fix that in real time. Oh, my goodness.
You changed the project name on us. Okay.
No way. There you go.
It took us
there we
long
go.
enough. Very good. All right. So, yeah, so let's, we're going to go through introductions. I'm just going to run through what we're going to cover today. So we've got 51 minutes left. This is really just a kickoff meeting and a level set. So, so we've got, I'm presuming that many of you had, attended the webinars or gotten the recordings, and and those are available on the wiki now. We're going to go over that in a little bit, but we're going to go over just a brief, project background and goals. We're going to show you that we're working on a logo. I'm going to ask Lewis to help me just navigate, show you a little bit of the wiki, what sites we have, and how you can access and navigate, what pages we have that you can look at and get information from, including, I've created, a meeting minutes record page where we're going to store recordings and minutes for all of our meetings, so everyone can go back and read if they've missed a meeting. We're going to just try and move through that pretty quickly, though, because we want to start to get into forming the TSC, the guidelines for that. Just to give you a pointer to the technical charter, which is also posted online. We're going to talk about, we're going to actually go through what the process is. And so, and then, people can start to, if you're ready to sort of nominate yourself or one of your colleagues for being the representative for your company on the TSC, we can start that today, but it's really, next week is where we're going to actually start to ask for the, at next week's meeting, we're going to try and finalize the initial TSC and keep that open for a time to be discussed within this group. We'll talk a little bit about the voting mechanisms and for all that, and then we'll talk about the timeline of the project. We'll talk a little bit more about seed code that we alluded to in the webinar if you were there, and what we've got to do to put some of the mechanisms in place for, accepting pull requests and submitting pull requests, and how we're going to create our build pipeline, and other sort of topics, where we're, where this project is going. What we've got a period where we're sort of in, in what we call sort of an incubation mode, but ultimately we want to ramp this project up, gain critical mass, put a roadmap together, and become a fully fledged Linux Foundation project, either under an umbrella like LFN, which is one candidate, or as a standalone project. So we'll just talk a little bit about that at the end, time permitting. But today we really want to start getting you familiar with, the wiki, and start talking about the TSC and some of that stuff. And I'm sure you want to hear a little bit about seed code timeline. So we're really going to try and get to that. So with that, I'd like to ask Alex or Jonas, somebody to volunteer to sort of give a brief project background. But do we want to start off before that just doing a round of introductions? Or do we sort of know each other already?
Yeah, I think let's get through this first. Otherwise, it'll take up a lot of time with 18 people.
Yeah, do you want to just jump into the agenda first?
Yeah,
get into the meat first. Yeah, I think we know, many of the people who are online. There's a couple of people I don't recognize, but I think most of us know a little bit about each other and have seen each other on some of the webinars and so forth. So who would like to volunteer to go over a brief, can we just kind of review the background and the goals of the project?
Bob, the background and the goals are in the slide deck, right?
Yep.
So if, rather than kind of ad lib the whole thing, perhaps we can just look at those pertinent slides and from the website and go through them if that's what you want.
Sure. So that would be a good,
I would argue that, most of I looked at the folks on the call. I would say that everyone on the call has been to one or the other webinar. And so how much time do you want to spend on this?
No, I think I agree with you, Alex. If you've been on the webinar, and most people have, we can perhaps just do a little summary what ODIM is about, 1 or 2 slides. Perhaps you jump to the architecture slide. I don't know what you want to do, but we cannot spend a lot of time on that because
no.
we might need to have other discussions here.
And just maybe we just ask right now, is there anyone on the call who hasn't been to any of the webinars, hasn't looked at the slides, and no, I guess everybody has.
Okay. All right. So let me just take a couple of minutes just to, introduce you to a couple of the links so you know how to navigate around here in case you haven't been to it just yet. So if you guys don't mind, let me just take about 3 minutes just to quickly navigate, okay? Okay, I'm going to share my screen real quick. All right. So we have this is sort of the Linux Foundation, ODIM.io. This is kind of the main, sort of just informational landing page at ODIM.io. And if you go to explore the wiki, you can get to the wiki. If you have colleagues that want to join the mailing list, they can join there. When we go to the wiki, this is still under construction, right? And so we have just a kind of a rough, it's just sort of a conceptual diagram that we went over in the webinar. You saw this. Mostly I want to point, for those of you not familiar with Confluence, we've set up 4 initial pages. One is community meetings. That's where we have this Zoom information. We have, when we're going to hold the meetings. Currently it's one of the things we'll talk about today, if we have time, is settling on whether everyone's okay with this time or they want to have a different day, different time. I did create a link down here at the bottom, and this is where I'm going to keep the meeting agenda and minutes for every single meeting, right? So today's page is here. And for those who have not navigated yet, again, and I'll just put this in the chat as well. Let's see here. Let's put this in the chat. So the documents page is just where we'll put some pertinent documents. Right now, we've got a logo concepts document. We have the deck from the last webinar. There's 2 versions of this. We modified the second one a little bit from the June 30th date. There was 2 webinars. You might have attended one or the other. Under the governance, we do actually have that the older 30 June that you may have seen if you attended that date. The updated July 8th one. The technical charter is here. So please do read this, because this is kind of an important document to go over. And we may actually want to go over this a little bit. We'll get to that in a moment. And then one thing I did want to point out, under the marketing page, I do have, Lewis did put up for us the actual recording of the webinar for folks that, didn't get a chance to see it. And from the July 8th webinar, again, here we've got, that record of that deck and, the problem statement and, kind of the architect, here's kind of the current situation, the lack of consistency of the way that infrastructure management is done today, and, what is ODIM trying to achieve. And so, going back, I guess we weren't going to go over this. Is that what you guys decided? Everyone's kind of seen these already?
Unless there is, you know,
Anyone?
there's a need, let's just continue because we have a lot of stuff to cover and
Yep.
we want to be in a good position for next time.
Yeah. Does anyone have any particular desire or need to go over some details from the slides that you saw in the webinar? Or can we get on to the, you know, sort of the logistics, the further logistics of TSC formation and so forth?
If they're legitimate, you know, if they're questions, you know, we're happy to answer, right? So, you know, we you know, I didn't mean to kind of sound like we're not gonna ever talk about this stuff again, but if everyone has been in the webinar and kind of understands where we're headed, then you know, we can push ahead. If not, then we can certainly spend some time resolving some questions.
Yeah, and of course, when we start, you know, getting into, you know, seed code and scope and architecture and the details of this, you know, then you know, if it makes sense to revisit some of those slides, we will, of course. But all right, so let's keep moving. And so that, you know, we've covered, you know, some of the basics of the wiki and so forth. One thing that I do want you folks to look at is we do have a proposal for a logo for the project, and it's linked in here onto the meeting minutes page and in your invite. And we would like people to take a homework assignment to look through the 4 concepts of logos over the next week. And next week we want to kind of choose one, right? And so I'm not going to go over these today because I don't want you to kind of look at them, but I will take a moment. I'd like to take a moment on this one in particular because this one has some history and some context, and just I'd like to ask somebody to kind of explain why we have this sort of a shark, you know, fish here. It has some meaning for us. So.
Yeah. So you know, fish, redfish, and sharks. Internally, in when we was building this project, it was called Bruce, from a shark in Finding Nemo or even Jaws. So that's where that's the history. But also redfish obviously has to do with fish. So.
Yeah. So the fish theme was, you know, has some historical significance for, you know, folks founding the project. So just wanted to mention that in case you were wondering why did lots of projects like to have a, you know, some animal logo or logo mascot, or that's the word I'm looking for. So
even though redfish actually came from a restaurant in Houston, I hear from the DMTF.
Oh, interesting. Okay, I didn't know that history. Anyways,
they serve good fish.
What's that?
They serve good fish.
They serve good fish there. All right, very good. Who would like to take up talking about the technical charter and the TSC formation? Alex, do you want to take a crack at that and explain?
Sure, we can. We took a stab between, you know, some folks to kind of come up with a technical charter. It needs to be ratified, and so it also needs to be reviewed. So at this point, as things stand today, you know, the formal participation from just a few companies. If there's going to be additional participation from other companies, we also want them to review the charter as well. So we're putting it here. One section in particular that it's basically a standard LF Foundation project charter, right? There were some amendments that we made, and most of those amendments have to do with the TSC membership and the voting process, and in general, just like the basics to get us going. It's fairly lightweight. So,
just a quick interruption, Alex, if you don't mind. I'm also, just please note that also you're looking at another site that's important for you to know about, which is the GitHub that we have set up. I'm going to put this, this is where we're actually going to, put code and do development until such time that we become a full-fledged Linux Foundation project, in which case we may have a repo under LF. But for now, we've got this GitHub here where we're going to be, keeping the actual code base and doing builds and so forth.
So Bob, the one thing we should probably do as well, just as I look around here, for all presentations, PDF format is great because it's quick to load and display. We should also put all the PowerPoint slides on the site as well. Just follow practices that other communities have as well. Anyway, back to the charter. We invite everyone who is looking to participate, who is participating already, to review it one last time. And I think the idea is that a week from today, we would take a vote on whether or not we're ratifying this charter and we're going to follow it. So if you look at section 2 in particular, that's where I think the bulk of the changes was. And so please have a look at that section. See if you have any concerns. We can discuss it again next time. And if there are no concerns and no issues, we will take a vote to ratify.
Yeah, and one other important note, because this project is still, it's an unfunded project in the vernacular of Linux Foundation. It's in a, sort of incubation mode, if you will. We don't have membership. You'll note that no one has asked you to, sign a membership agreement or pay any fees, because there are none. There is no membership. At this time, it is participation only, but we will form a TSC, and we would want to have each participating company to designate, one primary TSC member and one alternate. And you can infer from that we want people to be representing, and have the backing of their company to be a member of the TSC. And we also want you to, to have some commitment to, participating and contributing in some way through documentation, architecture, ideas, code, what have you. But we want active participation. And so if you are so inclined to participate and contribute and join us on this journey, then we'd like you to designate a representative for your company on the TSC and one alternate. And if people want to, we need those nominations or designations. We want to try and form the TSC next week. So we'd like you to come back with your representative and your alternate by next week.
But so we're doing that today as well, if we want to, right? I mean,
if people are ready today to say, yeah, I'm going to participate and my company's going to participate, I'm going to be the rep. You can I would ask you to actually put a statement to that effect in the chat window, and we'll capture it in the recording and note it as such.
Could we do this? Could we create a TSC web page? And could we have a table there that basically says members? And those companies that know who the members are, then they can put their names there. Including the email address and basic sort of information.
So you're talking about a wiki or
on Confluence? Yes. Let's do this on Confluence. So this way we can have a little section for the TSC where we can keep track of minutes.
But the problem with that is that everybody needs a Linux Foundation login, and if you know that, that's great. But I think we can also take nominations in the chat window, right? Like
we can, yeah, but I think we should record them permanently on Confluence.
Oh, absolutely. We definitely will, yeah. Yep, so let me get back to the agenda page.
like for instance, and the important thing here is I think, I don't know if you mentioned yet, is that in order for you to be on TSC, the company, you have to represent your company, and the company has to agree to join the project, right?
Yes.
That's yeah.
So just to add to that, potentially this community will affect a whole bunch of standards, well, redfish in particular, and changes like that also will impact implementation of those interfaces in different parts of software and hardware stacks. And so we wanted to make sure that, whatever we come up with and whatever the participation is, it's intentional and deliberate, and companies are behind this because chances are that there will be some impact down the line in terms of implementation. And so it's going to be important for us to make sure that these are not just, that these changes are actually rooted in actual support and participation and active participation down the line.
Yeah, and to that end, many projects, will form, kind of an outreach community, committee of some sort, or a work stream that basically assigns folks to do outreach, and we do, as we mentioned in the webinar, if you recall. One of the things we said that we would seek to do, especially with DMTF with respect to redfish, is seek to establish a formal liaison statement, which is something that is done in many of the, not only the ETSI communities, the standards communities we work in, but in Linux Foundation projects. So we want to establish some formal outreach and a formal liaison statement with certain other projects, whether they be critical adjacent projects related to orchestration or standards defining organizations, SDOs. And so we, I don't know what other people think about that, but I do think that we should talk about in future meetings, work streams for marketing, work streams for outreach, assign people to chair those, nominate folks to chair those, and have people who are interested in participating in those and taking on work items to join those subcommittees. I don't know if there's any comments or agreements or thoughts on that. A suggestion. Okay. Everyone's still there?
Yep.
All right. So what's up next up on the agenda here? Oh, the TSC meeting frequency. All right. So we're going to form the TSC starting next week. And again, if you want to put your name already in the chat box to start, we'll note that for this meeting. Because we want to, we want the TSC to, review and comment on and, move forward with, architecture and scope of the project and discussions on seed code and so forth and so on, and processes for pull requests and all that good stuff. So let's get going on that. I would like to propose that that we, of course, need to meet weekly. We have a pretty aggressive goal to. One of the things we'll talk about in the oncoming meetings is we want to have a first release of some initial code before the end of the year, and this TSC will decide on the scope of that and the date of that and the readiness for that. But we are at the outset, we, the people who have sort of, put this project together and starting this initiative, we had set for ourselves a goal to discuss with you of having that release before the end of the year, right? And so we got to move fast. We got to have weekly meetings, and I'd like to propose that that we have them on Wednesdays, every Wednesday, and if this time works, we can do it. If people have a particular, want to participate and have a particular standing conflict with this time, I'd like to, kind of hear about that now. Or if people are okay with it, can we go with this time, or is there another day or time that would be preferred? And one of the things we could also do is a doodle poll too, right? So I'd like to get some initial.
And I guess, Bob, that the TSC, once it's formed, can decide on that.
Yeah. I think once we know what the TSC looks like, we can look at the suitable time in terms of time zones and whatnot, and come up with a plan.
Okay, very good. All right. Can we talk a little bit about, sort of I've started to allude to the timeline. Can we talk a little bit about some of the seed code and some of the, build pipeline, sort of mechanisms, things we need to accomplish and get rolling on? And I'd like to ask some of the technical leads here to talk through a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is Jonas. I guess we want to just, as soon as the TSC is formed, we need to decide on how we work with the code. How do we approve pull requests? Do we have some voting and these type of things? Just so we know, right? I think that's the trigger for us to contribute our code, so that we know once it's contributed, we're going to work in the upstream and nowhere else. So we need to know that everybody agrees on this is how you get a new feature in and these type of things. So that's something we should decide on as soon as TSC is formed, I think. CI/CD is important, and we have been kicking the tires a little bit on GitHub with Git actions and how to trigger containers and how to run some unit tests. That is something we could ratify as well through in TSC once TSC is formed. That is not necessarily a trigger, but that is not blocking us to contribute, though. We just want to understand how we can get features in. So that's the only thing. As soon as we know that, we can pull the trigger and send the code upstream.
Yeah, one other thing I would add to that, I agree with you, Jonas. I think we can use what tools we have to get the stuff going. I would add that just in terms of getting all the use cases kind of crisped up and fully agreed on. Let's if we have access to Jira, this is, I guess, a question to the LF folks, because I know Jira is linked to Confluence under LF. That could be a good place to collect use cases and requirements and whatnot.
If we have Jira, we should probably do tickets or user stories in there as well. But
yes,
I assume that we only have Git issues, but perhaps the LF guys can comment on that.
LF guys?
Lewis, are you still, are you muted?
Yeah.
Or?
Jim's here.
Oh, Jim.
We're probably not going to allocate Jira at this time. So, we'd ask that you use GitHub issues to track. Okay.
Yeah. So that's where we, and that's the other thing, right? We need to sort of ratify or discuss in TSC. I envision that if we want new features, we would create a Git issue, and we can tie that Git issue to a certain pull request if we want to. There is also the concept of bugs and fixes. So just a little bit discussion around that on our first meeting, I think would help.
A question. Is it already decided what sort of license the open source would result in? Because I know that is something that we from Ericsson are normally very, very picky on.
Yeah, okay. So the answer is, if we were to change license at this point, that would delay the contribution because we will have to take it through our whole legal team again. But we like we kind of hinted earlier, I think, we have picked Apache 2.0, which is it's a very permissive license, and it's a very modern license compared to MIT and BSD3 and these guys of these type of things. Is that a sticking point for you guys?
I'm not the expert. I only know that each and every time these things comes up, there is a big debate before we are sort of allowed to get in there. So I will check. It's good that you're saying Apache 2.0. I would believe that that is an acceptable one, but I am not an expert.
I think that's the, Thomas, that's the default one that I think is used across Linux Foundation projects. So
okay. It is.
So if Ericsson is participating in other communities like ONAP or
TNTT.
Prano,
And ONAP,
that's
yes.
what we use.
Okay, good. That looks.
But yeah,
sounds
it's an
good.
important point. But everyone, please take note that the the initial seed code is currently licensed as Apache 2.0. That is our proposal, and if so, please, make sure that you don't have any heartburn or issues with that.
Bob, our proposal is a little bit stronger than that. What we're proposing is that the community here adopt Apache 2.0 license in general. So any contributions, all seed or otherwise, would be subject to that license. And we should note that that's the default for Linux Foundation projects anyway, and so that's what we're going with.
Yeah, the reason is, and I am no attorney by any means, so this is not a lawyer statement, but the reason is it doesn't have any copy left, so it's easier to integrate into a commercial product than, for instance, a GPL type of contribution, right?
Yeah.
Yep. Great. So I'll make sure that's noted in the minutes.
Well, again, I think we need to, the minutes are great, but we should also put it somewhere in some section on the wiki where we can have just the facts about the community without having to read through a million meeting notes.
Good
so
point.
we'll probably do that section. Can put
So
it under
noted.
governance.
Yeah, probably the governance would be a good spot for that. Very good. So noted. Did we want to talk at all, Jonas, about some of the initial ideas for how pull requests are accepted and reviewed, or do you want to wait until we form a TSC?
Well, I think, yeah. So I have thoughts around it. I was thinking that we would somebody. I mean, if you work, you will look at an issue, you will create a feature branch kind of type of thing reflecting that issue, and you can tie it to that issue, and then you will work your way through, and once you're ready you can raise a pull request. Then we will have maintainers, and they would obviously raising the pull request will trigger a build and some unit tests, and if that fails your pull request will be rejected, right? But if it doesn't fail, we will have to have some sort of a review, and I think we can do some voting there. Like if I approve it and another guy approve it, that could be the way to get something in. I don't know. I'm thinking in other projects I've seen maintainers for different type of the code, different projects, different repos, and there are different type of approaches you can take there. I don't have a strong viewpoint, but I want a solution that make it possible for good contributions to get in without delay, if I put it that way, right?
Right.
So I think we need to talk about it a little bit more detail in TSC in any case. So
yes, yeah, I think I've seen in many projects I've seen, some people are assigned as maintainer for different sections of code, and then there's people who are generally reviewers signed up as reviewers, and usually the maintainer and one or two other reviewers have to plus one
Jonas, could we maybe create a page that summarizes what your initial proposal is?
Yeah. Why don't should we have, if we have a TSC page where with our meetings, I can stick my thought in an agenda there, because every meeting we could have like, okay, this is what I plan to bring up on the agenda, and if somebody else has something, we add that, and there I can stick my thoughts. Is that good, Alex?
Yeah, I will try to do some reorganization after we're
Yeah, just if you just point me to, I mean, we could create
Okay.
a page, and you can point me to that, and I can stick my stuff in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, that might be a good thing for the governance page, right? Some of these real.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's actually development sections that need to pop up as well.
Right.
And this might also be a good time to get input from the LF guys, because we don't
Yeah.
want to reinvent the wheel if other projects are doing it in a certain way, and that makes sense to us to follow that. So.
We're happy to help connect you with other projects if you want. Certainly Bob and Alex and others are already very closely tied to a variety of projects that they can draw best practices from. But by all means, if there's a certain topic area where you want to explore what the best practices are, we'd be happy to help you do that.
Very good. Thank you. Appreciate it. So, any more discussions on some of the, sort of timelines that I alluded to earlier? Would someone want to take, kind of elaborate more fully on that? We want to form the TSC as soon as possible. We want to ratify the technical charter. We want to pick our logo. A lot of that we want to do next week. So my timeline.
Well, so for the logo, I think a doodle poll or whatever the poll is that Lewis already created, if we publicize that again, I think we can take that one offline and just tally the vote.
Yes. Yep.
And the only decision we need to make at the next meeting is, yes, this is the one that the majority, picked, and we'll go with that. On the
is that a TSC decision, or is it like anybody out there can vote?
My 2 cents is that if you're going to vote for something, you need to accept the charter, and for that to happen, you have to have been nominated by companies and all that. So,
yep.
Just so that
TSC vote then, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think so. I mean, I think that makes sense.
In some sense, we kind of have a TSC, and this is a combination of things. We're very small. And so having, a TSC meeting versus a governance meeting separately would probably be just too much overhead. But if we just use this Wednesday time, let's say, to talk about technical issues as well as overall community issues, then I think until we get to a point where we need 2 separate meetings, maybe we just do it all in one place.
Yeah, I think so. Excuse me. I agree with that. And then, yeah, and if we can agree on the ways of working with the pull requests and all that sort of thing, and the first seed code can be dropped, then we can start getting into, talking about how do we, what do we want to have for our first release, and can people agree that we can target one, before the end of the year? And let's be real, right? A lot of projects will have established that it's very, very important. This is kind of our viewpoint. It's very important to, show some code as quickly as possible and have a release as early as possible. And everybody knows that, a 1.0 is, it's a starting point. And, so I don't think that, and we're not trying to have a product quality, fully baked, stack, on the first release, right? So it's we want to have some flexibility to get something out there, and then it can be refined over the second and third, releases and so forth. And
so Bob, you're talking about the first sort of official release, right?
Yeah,
Because
first sort of official release. Yeah.
Yeah, my expectation is that since we have CI/CD, as changes come in, we do builds, and some version of ODIM becomes available after they get integrated, right? And everything is okay.
Yeah.
So that we keep moving, right? But
Yeah, we definitely want to have a CI/CD process, and but but I think that we still want to designate certain releases as a
stable.
A stable release, right? Yeah.
So there's probably I'll send an email to the TSC regarding another thing we should probably sketch out and ratify and get opinions on in terms of compliance, or not compliance, but compatibility in terms of interfaces and a few other things. But that we can take up on email first and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, I definitely want us to be able to, avail ourselves of the email list and make progress in between our meetings, right? Because we don't have enough time to go into deep, necessarily. I mean, we may have to call certain workshops for, for certain deep dives and planning and technical, code issues or whatever. We want this meeting to be largely a kind of a status and decision making process and that sort of thing. So to be efficient, we do need to be active on the list and make progress and tee up discussions, agenda items, and so forth for the meeting. So yeah, let's absolutely avail ourselves and be productive, in the weeks between. Any other topics that we want to cover today? Any questions or comments from the new participants who have come in today and have been listening? Any burning questions? Sorry for my
So
voice.
for next time, if we're building an agenda already, we should talk about refinements to the sort of the architectural view. We've heard some concerns over sort of the way things are represented, and we want to make sure that the architectural diagrams we use, the reference architecture that we use for the community, is kind of well agreed on and aligned, and we just want to make sure that there are no misconceptions. Some of this work has been kind of going on behind the scenes, but I think at the next meeting we should formally bless the official, architecture diagrams and whatnot, and maybe also put some, once we do that, we can sort of build some text around them and sort of explain how sort of the next level of detail in terms of how all these different things kind of come together.
Right.
And the other agenda item would be to talk about the CI/CD process that Jonas would summarize as in a straw man, and then we can do that.
Yep.
And notice that a few folks are editing the page and putting their name and company name here as attendees. Now, of course, we have the recording, and so we'll. I don't want to like start editing the page now and filling it in from the chat box, but we will. For those that don't put their name down, I will edit here. But I'd like to ask you if you would take a moment to. If you have your LFID and you're logged in and you can edit the page and add your name up there. I've taken some notes here on the side, and I'm going to be adding them to the minutes down here. Thank you, Louis, for capturing a couple things already. And then I'll send out a note that I've updated my minutes after, and I'll work with Louis to get the recording posted as well, so folks can re-listen to it if they wanted to rehear anything that they perhaps wanted to revisit or whatever. But that'll be captured here, and then your colleagues also who couldn't make it today can check it out as well.
So when is the next meeting? Is that decided?
So my proposal is, I'm going to keep going unless people tell me to. We can talk over I think we should probably do a doodle poll, but my proposal is the same time next week. But we could do a doodle poll.
Let's do an inverse of this right now, right? So we can always change things later, but for those folks that are present on the call, and those companies in particular that have already signed up to participate, is there any reason why that Wednesday slot that we have right now wouldn't work? If it works, then we don't need a doodle poll. We just basically continue with what we have until people can, companies will say, hey, time zones really suck for us, so we need to change it.
Yep. I agree. The quicker we can
the
better.
If there are no violent objections to keeping this time, let's stick with it then. Any violent objections on the chat or otherwise?
Let's call for violence.
That's a good one.
Okay. Yeah, that will be the stages: violence followed by consensus. So oh God. Okay, so it sounds like this might be a good time, and we can always change it, guys. It doesn't have to be.
Very good. All right. If there's no other sort of walk-on items or comments, we will.
This is Rafał Intel. I have a comment because you show the wiki page for documents and it contains the the logo concept, which is good. I recall there one of the LF guys created the doodle for the logo, right?
Yeah.
So
I hadn't seen that. Somehow I missed that.
People are putting comments under the document, so there is a dedicated doodle for that.
I think Jim said he would do it, or Louis, I don't remember, but I don't think it's actually done. So.
It was done because I voted. I know.
Okay, you received it.
Yeah.
Okay, somehow I missed it.
One thing we should probably flag right now. I apologize, Bob. If you look at this page, anonymous.
Which page? This one.
Yeah, the one we're looking at. Anonymous problem persists. Anonymous shouldn't be a valid.
When was that put in place? July 13th? Yeah, the problem persists.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how we get rid of it now because it's
Well, it's okay what we have, but I think there's a way to configure Confluence to not allow this, because I tried doing anonymous on ONAP, for example, and it failed.
Yeah, we shouldn't have that.
So
we might
maybe those were done before the change.
Yeah, it's legacy. Just to create.
Yeah,
it,
like
right?
the first one was me not realizing that I forgot to log in.
No, it's July 13th was after it was supposed to change, because it's 15th today, and it was last week when we thought we had fixed it, right?
Yeah, and we didn't. That's why I'm bringing it up.
So, Louis, do you know whether it's actually been fixed? I know that you said that you put in a ticket with the.
Yeah, this was supposed to have been fixed, but let me go ahead and capture that and reopen the ticket with IT and see what they need to come up with.
And Louis, the way it happened for me is that I just mindlessly said, "Okay, I'll just add my 2 cents." And didn't even realize I wasn't logged in, and then it just recorded me as anonymous. That's it's as simple as that to recreate.
Yeah, I'll double check, because just now when I tried to do some updates, I tried to edit without being logged in and it wouldn't let me. But let me double check.
Yeah, maybe there's something special about my ID. I don't know. And Jonas's or whoever else made the changes.
Well, that's the only page that has a created by anonymous. But in the comments here, so someone else was able to put in a comment as anonymous. So
that's me.
Oh, that's you. But then your name came up.
Because I realized that I didn't log in.
You didn't log in. Oh, yeah. So this just happened 2 days ago. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, and Sebastian here. And if I try it on the current meeting agenda, it still says you are not logged in. Any changes will be marked as anonymous. so it's still persisting.
Yes, the
Okay.
problem
all
is
right.
still there.
Okay. All right. Very good. Yeah. Let's get that fixed. Yeah.
So we see a couple of nominations happening in the chat, and
Thank you very much. And Louis, that'll be captured in the recording, right?
Yeah, I went ahead and saved. I have the chat saved, and I'll drop it onto the wiki.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? We have two minutes left. Thank you, folks.
are we just sorry, Bob, since we have a couple of nominations, are we going to actually put them up for others who come and see, or put it in the meeting minutes or something? So
It will be.
Yeah,
It'll be.
Pradeep, I was, I'm gonna build a little page for the TSC, and we'll have a membership table in there, so everyone knows who is who.
Okay, yeah, if others are looking at it, then they can see.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, we don't want to bury this in meeting minutes, I think. Full transparency.
Yeah, I'm still going to capture it there in the minutes, but yeah, we should
Yeah,
have
yeah.
an official page. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Very good. All right. Thanks everyone for their participation today. And we look forward to seeing you a week from now on the same time, same channel. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank
Very
you.
good. Thanks, guys.
Hey, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Guys.